I was getting Facebook leads for 76 cents. And those leads were like, they click something, the form's right there, it auto-populates, and now all of a sudden they're a lead. But most of the time when you have leads like that, they forgot they did it as soon as they click off because it auto-populated. There was no work for the client to do. As soon as it came up, boom, everything was in there, just like Amazon.
You may know today's guest as Jay the Broker or Don't Blame the Leads. I've been following this cat on Instagram and TikTok for at least a year now. Mr. Julian Dickinson, thank you for joining me today.
Not a problem at all. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Awesome, man. So let's jump right into it. How did you get into the life insurance industry? Were you recruited? How did that happen?
You know, I woke up as a little child and I always wanted to be in insurance. It's my dream job. No, I'm kidding. No, it was actually quite by accident. Yes, I was recruited. I think I'd been recruited like 3 times before and didn't go for it. A couple of Primerica people had reached out to me in a grocery store, another guy at a Target, and it was a WFG person, then finally an American Income Life person. But one day, the woman I was dating, her cousin worked for an American Income Life agency.
If you'd like 20 life insurance appointments on your calendar every single day, all set by the clients themselves who expect to speak with you about burial life insurance, or if you'd like a copy of the free new agent remote sales file, lots of killer sales materials here, email me at doug@ufesonline.com or just click on the link below in the description.
They brought me in. I was very close to starting, but I was like very offended by the top of the line guy. So I didn't do it until a couple of years down the line. A friend of mine who has lupus reached out and said, "Hey, do you know anyone who sells life insurance?" I'm like, "Look, I'm looking for a job. I don't know, but I know a guy who sells it." And then the rest is history. I said, "Hey, bro, do you still do life insurance?" "Sure. Here's my friend, my client. And, are you hiring?" And so, that began a captive journey at first.
What was that first couple of years like for you? Did you stay with them? Did you do what most of us do and have to switch gears immediately once you realized it wasn't quite what you thought it was going to be? How did that all work out, that first couple of years?
That first couple of years was the worst time of my life. I'll tell you.
Man.
I'll tell you because I thought that I was I felt like a consummate professional. Like I really felt like I know sales, I know this stuff. I looked at the people who made it seem easy in my office, and I'm looking at this script I had to learn. I'm like, this will be a cakewalk, and I know how to sell. Yeah, for the first 60 days, I think I made 1 sale, and it was on like a friend, Then I finally made another sale, and it was like a 600 AP on a guy who already had a policy at the company. And then I don't know, it was bad. My first like 60 to 90 days was terrible. And I decided if I'm going to quit, I'm going to take it very seriously. I said in my mind, I'm going to be cynical. These people are telling me if I follow this script and I do what they tell me that I will make money. So my mentor, my upline, whatever you want to call him, he gave me a different script. He gave me some different leads. And I said, if this doesn't work, I'm going to go back to, 9 to 5 land. And so I studied it meticulously. When I say meticulously, I still have recordings, several recordings. I would listen to them on the way home from the office. I'd listen to them while I dialed. I listened to them on the way to the office. I video recorded him doing the presentations. Like I even had it down to his mannerisms, his own little ticks. I was doing those things. And the very first week out of me actually running appointments, I think that was the first time I ever broke like 15K. And, to me, even though I was at low commission back then, to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this little, $3,000 or $4,000, I've never made that much money. And so I never looked back. After that, the rest of that 2 years was more or less me failing forward, learning how to recruit, learning about the business, figuring out what my door knocks, because I was back then there was no telesales. It was all door knocking and those leads, but just figuring that stuff out. So it was hard. Business is still hard, but it was much harder when I was newer than it is now.
Yep. A lot of similarities in my story, and yeah, that's how I started. I started out, the door knocker, traveling throughout Florida, buying, direct mail leads, doing mail drops. And then eventually I was able to figure out a system which like everybody said it's not going to work, where I basically hired an appointment setter and had her work with me, kind of like, we kind of worked hand in hand on setting appointments, so that once I'd travel to the destination, the area that I was at, that I would work that day, I'd have appointments and then door knock the leads in between. And was very successful at that. It sounds like you had to go through your trials to figure it out. So here we are, years later. It sounds like you've got a couple of different possible companies. What is it that you do for life insurance agents?
A lot, a lot. It's a little unorthodox, and people keep telling me to charge agents for stuff. But what I really want to do is help. Not necessarily, I don't want to have to like mentor completely a bunch of random agents, but I do want to be able to give people advice and guidance in the right direction. I started like Don't Blame the Leads like 3 or 4 years ago, and through imposter syndrome, I never wanted to like do anything with it. I started it. I have a logo. I started a YouTube channel. I filmed a bunch of podcasts that none of them have posted. So now, like, as far as what I do, now I'm more willing to step into, all right, let me give some more mentorship to people, whether they're on my team or not. I also recruit. I started a recruiting company way back when I was captive. A lot of it was out of spite because I figured out how to do it, and I was out recruiting the people that my SGA was like paying. And then he told me to my face, well, the only reason your recruiting is so good is because my name is on what you're posting. And when he said that, I said, oh, really? Hold my beer, as they say. And I started recruiting for a competing agency just to see if it had anything to do with him. And magically, it didn't. As long as I think someone's ethical, I'll recruit for almost anybody. Other things like, I don't know, you name it. I do a lot of AI training for a couple of the IMOs that I work with, so that agents understand that they don't need to pay some Yahoo $3,000 or $4,000 a month just to do a Facebook ad campaign that they barely look at after they set it up. You're paying them thousands of dollars to manage the campaign, but what are they doing? Are they really monitoring the stuff? The answer is no. Spoiler alert, the answer is no. So I try to show agents how to use this technology that's in front of us, even how to use social media to get clients.
Nice.
Or anything. I just really want to help agents.
Let me ask, so, when I was looking into you, I saw something called Structured Credit Solutions. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, okay. So this is it's not me. All right. Shout out to a guy named Varney. He is that's like Barney with a V. He was one of my agents for a while. He owns a very successful credit credit business out of the state of Virginia. And so one of the things that he does, like, I showed him how to use his standard business, which is the credit thing. I showed him how to pair life insurance with it because he got a life insurance license. And that's another thing that I do. If you have a side business, I don't care what it is. We work in the financial services industry. All we're doing is selling discounted dollars. So if someone could use this money for something, I like showing, small business owners how they can combine insurance into that. And so Varney, I have his link up there because there's a lot of people who don't know that even as a life insurance agent, there are a lot of things that you can do with good credit, or if you open an LLC with your business, how you can, pair that with credit. And he's such a good guy, and he's a professional guy. So I leave his link up there. So if anybody ever wants his services, that they can go to it. But that's not me. I apologize.
Let me ask you this. So with a service like that, is it good for an agent who maybe, wants to get in the industry and maybe is looking to get a business loan? Anything like that?
I'm not going to say that he can help you get a business loan, but he can help you get your credit to the place where you can.
Okay.
Another thing too that I don't have on there, part of my organization, we have someone who used to be an auditor. And so she helps people with the other end of it as well, how to make sure that you're compliant tax wise and things of that sort.
All
But yeah,
right.
I'm not going to say that he's going to make it so that you can buy a Range Rover like they say online. Oh, you do your credit, get a Range Rover from having an LLC. It's nothing like that.
Do you have your own insurance agency? Do you bring in agents and teach them how to do the business?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Excellent. What's the name of your company, and tell us a little bit about that?
Very generic name. It's Power Financial. I may be changing it. I recently spoke to not a copyright lawyer. I forgot what he calls himself. And because there are a lot of Power Financials out there,
Right.
I was like, oh, well, I thought it was a decent name. I just wanted to call ourselves something. And I have my own logo and everything. Powerfinancial.co, not .com. Very generic website. But my approach is that just like there's no one size fits all solution for clients, I don't think there's a one size fits all solution for agents. I've seen very, very strong people when I worked captive that just could not, they just couldn't sit there and dial these bait and switch type of leads all day, and it was crazy because they had other professional businesses. They were realtors, they were something else, but the system they were boxed into just didn't fit them. And I just kept thinking every time I saw somebody leave the business like that, I'm like, isn't there another way they could have still utilized what we have? And then even leaving that captive side, I'm watching independent agents and I'm like, well, this person would have done better if maybe they didn't have to buy leads. They have a good warm market. Or this person here, maybe they should buy leads, but they just don't know how, So my approach is, I listen to whoever wants to come on board. I see if I really think I can help them. If I don't, then sure, go to it. I have a bunch of people I know in the industry. Go there. Here's this person. Here's this person. But if I think I can help them, sure, I'm going to show you. I have a big client acquisition form that I've built. Like, here are the different ways that you can do client acquisition. Pick one. You can do many, but pick one so you can get good at it. I show people also, like, here are different ways to talk to that method. Because there's, if you say, I want to buy leads, well, you and I both know there's different types of leads. There's internet leads, there's mailers, you've got final expense leads, mortgage protection leads, you've got annuity leads, IUL leads, you've got, you name it. You've got, I keep forgetting the live transfers. There are different ways to get in front of a client, but what's very important is like the individualization to me for the agent and making sure that they have a clear path, especially regarding their goals and what they want to do so that they can reach the heights that they want to reach. And if they win, we all win.
What's your main type of lead? And like, what do you generally, if you get an agent that comes to you, they want to sell final expense, for example, what do you speak with them about as far as leads are concerned?
And it all depends. So if I have somebody who says, listen, I worked for a company that wanted me to talk to my friends and family. I burned those bridges to the ground. They think I'm selling timeshares or something now. I can't talk to them at all. All right, cool. So if you want to buy leads, I'm going to tell you my recommendation for almost anyone is get your own dedicated lead funnel. I don't care if you're doing a Facebook campaign. I don't care if you're doing some kind of LinkedIn something, Google, YouTube, whatever. Get your own lead funnel. And with technology these days, you can have AI walk you through that if you're patient enough. And if you're not patient enough, you have to find someone who knows what they're doing. But that's the main thing I tell agents. Have your own lead funnel. And in fact, one of the things I'm also telling agents is if you see an ad and you're doing your own lead funnel, why are you not the person at the top of the ad? Why is it that you're seeing John or Bill or Consuela saying, well, life insurance is great. A 30-year-old can get $50,000 of final expense coverage. No, why don't you do it? That way, the expectation of the client is this is the person in the ad. This is the person's picture that I see at the bottom of the funnel. And then when I get on the phone, it matches. That builds more credibility and trust with the client. So that's normally what I tell people. Get your own lead funnel.
And you're speaking my language. So that's what I've been preaching that for years now. You really, if you can figure out a way to generate your own leads and control your own leads, that is definitely the way to go. Now, let me dig in a little bit more, because I know that some people are like, well, I believe the Facebook form, that type of lead is the best, but then the funnel where you take them away from Facebook and put them onto your landing page is the best. Which direction do you go? What's your perception on that?
Well, it depends. Do you want a cheap lead that may not convert, but you got leads, or do you want a more expensive lead that is going to not convert as many times, but it's more sticky? If you just want a lead, like I was getting Facebook leads for 76 cents, and those leads were like, they click something, the form's right there, it auto-populates, and now all of a sudden they're a lead. But most of the time when you have leads like that, they forgot they did it as soon as they click off, because it auto-populated. There was no work for the client to do. As soon as it came up, boom, everything was in there. Just like Amazon. A lot of times with Amazon, you can, buy it now, and you might forget that you ordered it, and 2 days later, you're like, yeah, I did order that pot and pan off But if you actually have go high level, there's a lot, like Agent CRM is a very good platform that has a lot of funnels built into it. If you do something like that, or if you don't like CRMs, they're like the same price, but you could do ClickFunnels. And essentially, the more steps a client has to go through, usually they're going to remember it more. Yes, you're going to have more people drop off. You're not going to get a lead at 76 cents, but you're not going to get hung up on as much as those 76 cents leads. I got hung up on a lot, but it was 76 cents. So I wasn't that angry, but you're going to waste more time.
And the crazy part about that 76-cent lead is those are the leads that the lead vendors are selling for $20, $25, $30. Hello.
Yes.
That's why we do what we talk about.
And then they resell them. And then your uplines, and like, God bless these people, because like I would go when I went independent, I had agents that would come to me and say, hey bro, I just talked to Bill Johnson like a month ago, and I sold him a policy, and he's my lead again. So then I would reach out to, I'm not going to say the name because I realize it's going to be, I would reach out to those guys.
Right.
And we would say, well, Bill Johnson, clients fill out forms over and over and over again. Well, this was happening so much that I'm like, why would, let's say, a dozen clients all refill out forms when they bought policies? Well, let me look at the lead number. Let me look at the order number behind the lead. Well, it's different. So this is a different time. Okay. So it can't be manipulated in the back end. All right. Sure. Yeah.
As far as agent resources is concerned, are there any books that you would recommend, or maybe even like Facebook groups or websites that you would say, hey, you know what? Read this, go here. Other than Massi.
I just started a Facebook group. Don't blame the leads. Like I said, I've been
I'm in.
Thank you. I had big imposter syndrome when I started the whole don't blame the leads thing. And I just felt like, you look at guys like, you or David Duford, Cody Askins. When I was new to being independent, you'd look at these guys who have game shows and stuff, and you're like, what do I have to offer the industry? So, I made my TikTok. Anyway, let me back up. So don't blame the leads Facebook group, the only group for sophisticated and wonderful, non-biased, intelligent insurance agents. But as far as books to read, if you're a brand new agent, there's a couple of books I would definitely recommend. Number one, Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. In that book, there's a phrase he says, success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. Like, I'll never forget that. I almost did, but I won't forget it. Another book, if you don't want motivation and you just want sales stuff, the book Way of the Wolf, The Art of Straight Line Selling. That's a good book. If you're getting into leadership, and it's not a motivational book, it's just a factual book. It's called Relentless. I keep forgetting the name of the author of Relentless. He was Michael Jordan's coach. It's not a motivational book. In fact, like, you might read that book and walk away like, what did I just read? But you learned something. You don't know what you learned, but you learned something. It's a good book. And I'll give you one last recommendation so that I'm not rambling here. Ooh, there's so many good ones. Chris Voss is the author. It's Never Split the Difference. Sorry, it took me a second. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That is a really good book. So if you read Way of the Wolf and then Never Split the Difference, that's going to change things for you. But I have a lot of books. I think leaders are readers. I could talk about books for like an hour. So
When you're speaking with a potential recruit, an agent that you're thinking, this guy may or may not fit, this gal may or may not fit with my agency, what is it you really look for?
I look for a willingness to learn. I look for someone who seems coachable and not stuck in their ways. It's a really big hot take, but I don't necessarily like, I love licensed agents. I would almost rather have an unlicensed person with no bad habits. Because even me, I've got bad habits. I've got bad habits. Like, it takes a lot to shift your own mindset sometimes, but that's not what you asked me. So a willingness to learn, someone who is very coachable, also somebody who's I don't want to say, you don't have to necessarily be some big hustling go-getter type of person, but you got to be willing to try. Even when I'm bringing people on, I say, are you someone who's willing to try? And are you willing to, even if I get like, are you willing to do exactly what I'm telling you to do without changing it, as long as I'm not telling you to do something illegal or unethical?
And that's tough because a lot of agents seems like, you give them the path and they tend to like, well, you mentioned the stairs. They tend to try to figure out a way to take the elevator, which just inadvertently makes it that much harder to get to the top.
Yeah,
And I think that's like human nature. We all want to make things easier, right? Everybody wants the unicorn, the better lead. Everybody wants the easier way, the easier system. Nobody wants to have to suffer while growing.
right.
And so, but you and I both know they both kind of go hand in hand. If you're going to have growth, there's going to be struggle.
Yeah.
There's going to be some uncomfortable times.
The sooner you run face forward into failure, or, well, it's not failure if you keep going, but the sooner you run face forward into getting told no, face forward into doing the things you don't want to do, the sooner the suffering stops. Like, you can take your time being coachable like I did, and then, now you're 2 or 3 months in, barely making any money. Or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to do exactly what this person says. Not kind of. I'm going to do A, B, and C, not B, C, and E. You can either do that and it's going to suck for you for a second, or you can prolong that struggle along your career and be like the 92% of people who fail out of the business.
What do you think the more successful agents are doing that the struggling agents maybe are not doing? Or what differences stick out to you?
I think, kind of like I said right before this, before we started recording, I think everyone feels like everyone is the hero of their own story. You're the hero of your story. I'm the hero of my story, whether we are happy or whatever about our lives or whatever. And I think because of that, it's easy for agents, because I've done it, it's easy for agents to make excuses or reasonable reasons why they won't do certain things. And I think the successful agents are smart enough to absorb a system or absorb a teaching of some sort, but they're dumb enough to just try and do the thing that way. I think agents who are successful, those are the ones who they're just, like I said, yep, all right, let's try it. Yep, okay, let's do it. Yep, I'm going to get on this call. Yes, I'm going to post this video. Yes, I'm going to make 250 calls a day if that's the system that I'm running. I also think, and this was not my belief not too long ago, but I think very successful agents, when they're new, they're going to lock in and dial in and buy into whatever the system and actual team environment. It's very dangerous to be isolated. And that's something I struggle with too. I'm not any different. Like, I'm very untrusting of this industry. Like I told you, I didn't really know about shit for a minute. Right. And isolation is okay, but it's very dangerous because this is a predatory industry and it's very hard. And it gets harder when you're by yourself and then you start listening to the voices in your head. And so if you're not locked in to a positive environment, if you're not locked into people who are encouraging you and pushing you in the right direction, it's easier to fail. So it's my 2 cents.
I've been in the industry for maybe a year or two. I tend to jump from one agency to the next to the next. Now it's at the point to where I'm thinking this just isn't working for me. I need to go back to a 9 to 5. Any advice for me?
I've had that a lot. So to me, it really depends. If I would ask more details, I would say, why do you feel like this isn't working? How much money do you have saved up? Do you need, so let's say that you're 19 years old, you live at home with your parents, you don't really have anything but your cell phone bill, and you're just tired of getting hung up on. I'm going to say, well, how many calls have you made? What are you doing for leads? What is it that you feel like you're doing that is leading you to the failure? And if I think the person's actually working at it, I role play with agents free on my when they call, they get on my calendar. I'll role play with an agent. Hey, role play your script with me. Let me hear it. And then I can say, listen, your script is not good or it's great or whatever. And then I can say, look, apply for the jobs. I tell people, apply for the jobs. Go ahead and apply. But right now you have something that you could make $800 in a couple of days. How much do you need to live? Like, what is the dollar amount? Now, that person's different than, say, a stay-at-home single parent that's got a couple of children. They've got a lot of big bills coming, and maybe they're telling themselves they don't have certain time. But I'm always going to tell people it is harder to, especially if you're concerned about money, it's harder to find a job that's going to pay you within a specific amount of time than it is to go find some business to write. Because think about it. What's today? Is I don't know what your thing is like. But let's say it's the first of the month, because I don't know when I'm posting it.
Right.
Let's say it's the first of the month. You apply for this job. And if they're hiring heavily, they're going to do some interviews. Let's say it's quick and you get interviewed by the end of the week. Okay, it's the 5th. You get interviewed. They're interviewing other people. It's never usually one interview, especially in this economy. So let's say you have to have 2 interviews at least. Okay, so now, even if it's next week, now you're all the way at maybe the 15th. All right. So now they've done these interviews and they want to hire you. You get hired. You get the offer. You like it. Now you have to get your W-2s taken care of. You have to start training. And usually you take a week in the hole when you start someplace. What I'm getting at, as I'm sure you know, you're not going to really start getting paid until like early November. If we're saying if this is the 1st of September, you're not going to start getting paid until early November, at least. And that's at a rapid higher pace. Wouldn't it be easier to go reach out to your little cousin and ask them if they have coverage? Wouldn't it be less selfish of you to at least remind your family, hey, I'm here. I do life insurance. Everybody's going to die. I'm here. And at the very least, even if you write 1 or 2 children policies on your nieces and nephews, you'll have that same money that you were looking for, but it's not going to take you a month. It's just going to take you getting up. That's what I would say. Sorry.
What advice would you give a new agent who maybe got recruited into an MLM and they're seeing the show, they're seeing the build your agency, and they're like, I want to build my agency. What advice would you give me?
Ooh, it depends on the company. It really,
maybe even consider that they're thinking, oh, I'll leave where I'm at, but I want to have my own shop. I want to have my own downline agency.
Man, I feel like you're putting me into a corner because my advice is not going to be popular.
I want to hear it. I love it. I love it.
I would say I would say you can have your own LLC, but it's not yours. I literally just had this conversation with someone else who was trying to recruit me to I'm not going to say the names. I had a very long conversation with this guy that was trying to recruit me a few weeks ago. Nice enough guy. And he was telling me, well, at these other companies that, you don't have ownership and you don't own your book and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, respectfully, you don't have ownership. Well, yes, I do. I signed a contract. When I got to my 80% LMNOP level, I signed this contract. So I own my agency. And I said, you have to put an asterisk, like the Thunderbolts, asterisk. You have to put asterisk behind that, bro, because the IMO owns your book of business and agency. He's arguing with me again. And I said, okay, I'll put it this way. I said, do you have Columbus Life? The guy said, no, I don't have Columbus Life. I said, well, you own your agency, right? I said, right. I said, go get it. Go get a Columbus Life contract for yourself right now. Well, if I want to do that, I'll just check with I said, check with that's where you don't own it. If I rent a house and they say I can't put TVs on the wall, if I put a TV on the wall and they do an inspection, I'm evicted, just like you would be. But if I own that home, I can tear the whole wall down and build a wall full of TVs, like some supervillain or something, because I own it. And I said, so respectfully, you don't have true ownership unless you are direct to the carriers, which is harder than people think. And people I don't understand. I do understand. IMOs will not tell you how to do it. I saw a video of yours where you actually talk about it, but you don't really own it. If someone wants to build an agency, sure. Just understand that so number one, whoever is in your upline, they have access to all your business. I've left a lot of IMOs. And almost every time that I've had to leave because I see something shady and I don't like it, they've called through my downline. They've called through my agents, and then they call through the business that was written, and they find ways to act like it's not churning. But that's because my book of business is their book of business too. So you don't own your book of business. You don't. You don't.
Look, and to me, the way I see it, if you're with an MLM, one of those companies that, have the 3 initials or the 4 initials, that is the case. That is exactly how it is. And so really, it's so important. If you want to build an agency, heck, if you even just want to sell insurance, it's so important that you Google the heck out of the person who's recruiting you, first of all. Whoever your direct up line is going to find out if they've got a presence. Make sure they've got actual reviews and or testimonials. And at the end of the day, you've got to make sure you're not getting into business with someone shady. I know that there's one who, I can't mention them because every time I've tried to mention them, I get a letter in the mail from their attorney and they want to sue. They want to sue if I don't remove the content. So I won't mention the company that starts with an F and then the 3rd initial starts with an L. I won't mention who they are.
I'll talk about it.
But if you Google, here's how you find out if you're getting with the right agency or not. Google lawsuits and the company name. And boom, you're going to see, when you see the MLMs, you're going to see lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. One of the lawsuits that I saw recently on one of those companies was an agent built an agency and wanted to go somewhere else. He was promised there would be no contract. You can leave anytime you want. But now to leave, they want him to sign a contract relieving himself of his downline agency. No, we don't do contracts until you try to leave. Now we're taking your agency.
I don't know if you saw my video about that, but
you know what?
I have a video pinned to my TikTok.
I don't think I may not have, but yeah, so I mentioned the company in a video I put out that was like that about the F and then the L company. Mm-hmm. And boom, man, their attorney was all over me. Remove that content immediately or we're coming after you. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I think I'm easygoing. I'm being polite. All I literally did was say, this company has a lawsuit. Let me read the lawsuit. I didn't say anything negative. I didn't even give my opinion. And they're coming after me. That's what you're dealing with when you get with the wrong agency. And that's why it's so important to do your due diligence.
Well, it's also really hard. I don't mean to cut across you.
No,
It's really hard for people to do that too, because a lot of these companies will settle out of court. Like if there's any agents out there, hopefully this doesn't get your video taken down, but if there's any agents out there who went through any of the stuff that we're talking about, where they don't want to release you, or one of the things that happened to me when I left, they were like, well, fine. They took my top producers, they bumped them up to the same comp, they put me as earned, and then they started recruiting people under me so that my 6-month clock would start on certain carriers, because it doesn't happen with all of them. But some carriers, if you get recruits or overrides, they start your clock over. They started like writing little bits of business. Then that agent would be removed from my downline, and they would churn the business anyway. So if any of that happened, they will sweep that stuff under the rug and you won't see those reviews. But I tell people, one of the things you can ask, number one, and sometimes they lie, so it doesn't help. You always want to ask, what is your release policy? Do you have open release? Like me, I will release any agent. I feel like it's a relationship. If I'm dating someone and they don't want to be with me anymore, what do I look like saying, well, hold on, I'm going to keep all your stuff here for 6 months. And if you want to use it, I'm going to start your 6 months over again. If you want to use your toothbrush, no, get out. If you think that I'm not the best thing for you, cool. You'll go out there and maybe you'll come back. Maybe you won't. It'll be fine. But a lot of these companies are going to lock you in for 6 months. Some of them just move to a 12-month release schedule, which is dumb, because an agent that's angry, they'll write bad business. So I don't know why companies do it. Another question that these agents, y'all need to ask, especially those of you who don't have a lead program, what is this company going to do to help you with clients? Especially if the company is bringing you in at like 25 or 30%. Why would I come in at captive company comp when I'm supposed to be an independent agent? And then at the same time, you want me to park all my contracts here? What are you giving me as the agent? Because you're receiving massive overrides. At 30%, if my top line is at 130 and sometimes higher, because I know Doug said this in the video, like I know you've probably seen the 200% contracts like I've seen. So like if my upline is at 200% and I'm 30, they're receiving such a big override when I write any business, they can afford to give you freaking leads. So what are they doing? So you want to ask, what are you going to do to help me with client acquisition? Also, like, what's the training program look like? See if you can sit in on some of the trainings. If people want to sit in on mine, I let people sit in on my trainings all the time.
Same
I've
here.
been doing my AI trainings on live lately. So these are things that you want to see, because when I joined one of them companies that we just talked about, I said, hey, I've never written an IUL before. Can you help me? And they said, oh yeah, it's easy. Just Mutual of Omaha, IULE, and here's a YouTube video. Go watch the YouTube video. YouTube video was not helpful. IULEs were not that good. Sorry, I just went off on a tangent. I'm very passionate about this because agents keep getting screwed. And then people are in my comments when I make videos like the one you're talking about. And they're like, the company doesn't do that. You must have had debt. That's why you didn't get a release. I had no debt when I got a release. When I got released, I have a recording in my upline calling one of my clients pretending he was Americo because my client recorded it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I need to stop. This is your show. My bad.
It's hey, I love it. That's some pretty deep stuff. All right, look, let's close. Any last pieces of advice, maybe anything else you can think of to give to a new agent who, to give them a better chance of being successful?
Okay, I'm sorry for that hot take for a second ago. You might have to edit that whole thing out. But no, what I would really say is if you're a new agent in this business, understand it's harder than you think. However hard you think this is, it's going to be, and you're preparing yourself for it, it's more difficult. But the rewards are astronomical. You have to last. You have to stick it out. And you have to dive in. Sure, you can do it part-time if you want, but understand it's easier to do it part-time once you've learned full-time. Once you've taken time out to get through the bumps and hurdles. Another little piece of advice, don't try to absorb everything all at once. One of the people that's on my TikTok says to niche down. That's why certain companies only do term. It's very easy to learn one thing and get good at it. Learn one thing, get good at it. then once you're good at it, take whatever clients that you have. If you learn something new, and you can reach back out to those clients. Hey, I learned something new. I got a new skill. I got a new carrier. I got a new something. Maybe I can help you with that. But start with one thing and then blast off from there. That's my advice. Keep it simple, stay focused, be consistent, and you will succeed.
Excellent advice. Don't blame the leads. Julian Dickinson, thank you for being here today, buddy. I
Thanks
really
for having me.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
All right.